Welcome to the Exodus Companies podcast. My name is Jared. I'm the CEO and founder of the Exodus Companies. This is a movement from culture to build community. It was around 11 o'clock in the morning. Class had just let out. I grabbed my bag, my college books, and I walked through the chipped, frail-looking door that appeared as though it belonged in the 1800s. I worked my way through the long corridor toward the exterior door. My plan was to treat myself by grabbing lunch off campus, and I made my way through the satellite building, and finally, after working my way through the bustle of bodies, I arrived at my 1989 Jeep Cherokee. Now, to most people, this Cherokee was a clunker, but to me, it had been a source of pride and joy, something I had put my time and energy and money into. This was something that I built, I fixed, I created, and it had often been the source of so much grief in my life. Something many people who are very close to me know about me is when I care about something, I really care about something. When I build something, it means something to me. So when things go wrong, it's very hard for me to avoid the vortex of doubts and obsession and frustration. As I put the faded metal key into the ignition and I gave it a turn forward, I fired up that old 4.0 straight six and slid the gear selector into drive. I made a critical observation. My Jeep would not shift from first gear. The RPM gauge just kept getting higher and higher, and my automatic transmission simply would not shift. I immediately turned around and slowly made my way back to the campus in first gear. As I put the gear selector in park, a wave of frustration and anxiety came over me. The Jeep drove perfectly fine on the way here. What the heck could have happened? I don't have enough money to replace this transmission right now, was a fleeting thought in my brain. Just as I decided that the best move was to start looking at connectors and plugs and wires for broken wires or bad connections, it poured. And I mean a torrential downpour. I got absolutely soaked as I was crawling around my Jeep, frantically trying to find something obvious, anything that could have caused the issue that I was witnessing. I unplugged, replugged, and wiggled wires. Everything looked good. One more test drive, and as I am at this point soaked to my core, no luck. The Jeep continued to refuse to shift from first gear. I was furious and frustrated and anxious and stressed, and I still had an entire half day of classes. How the heck was I going to focus now? How was I supposed to get home? I'm 35 minutes from home. It's not like I can just walk. I don't live on campus. I can't leave my Jeep here for long. I felt hopeless. I know it might seem overdone, and I know it seems like I'm overreacting at this point, and I'd have to actually agree with you on that. I couldn't focus during my classes at all the rest of the day. Spent every second of that day on a computer on Jeep forums trying to figure out how I could get my Jeep home. I read and reread forums. I posted questions, answered questions, desperately trying to understand what was wrong. In my brain, it isn't that I need to fix it right now. I am just wired to obsess over the research until I know what I need to fix. And I used to run myself into the ground in an extremely unhealthy way, trying to solve problems that seemed earth-shattering at the time. It got to the point where many people in my late teenage years told me that I stressed about things like vehicles way too much. Most of this stress came from not knowing. When I had a major vehicle or life issue, I needed to diagnose it. If I could pinpoint the issue, I was in a better spot. But until I did, good luck changing my train of thought. It wasn't limited to just vehicles. This bled into all areas of my life. Things I couldn't control controlled me. 2 weeks ago, on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, I ran to Lowe's, and on the way back, I pulled off the highway to fill up my current Jeep Cherokee XJ with some diesel. It was a gorgeous day, and I had the windows down, my sub was cranked, I was enjoying the music and the sound of that turbo diesel engine that I had swapped into my rig years and years ago. I topped off my tank with fuel, pushed that volume knob up, and let that turbo sing as I made my way back home. I made my way into a small town called Denver. I came to a stop sign and gently came to a stop, and as I pulled out, I heard a sound, a distinctive snapping sound that I first thought was simply my locking differential disengaging. It does this from time to time, so I wasn't super concerned. I just kept going forward, and immediately I heard curling, crunching sheet metal, and the passenger side rear of my Jeep drop by, approximately 2 feet. My head drops, and I painfully look in my side view mirror. In the middle of the road is a 35-inch tire and wheel, and immediately I know what happened. My axle snapped, my wheel exited the chat with the 35-inch tire, and my brake drum. Upon deciding to spontaneously vacate the premises, the 35-inch tire took out the entire rear quarter of my Jeep. My hatch doesn't open anymore, my rear passenger door doesn't open anymore, and the axle braking easily caused potentially thousands of dollars in bodywork that I'm going to need done. So what did I do? Well, I said some choice words for sure, and I said a prayer. Thank you. Wait, Jared, you said thank you? Yes, I did, because 10 minutes previously, I was doing 75 miles an hour down the highway, and an axle failure at that speed could have potentially made me past tense. What did I do after that? I addressed the situation, admitted that it was a crappy situation. My beautiful rig that I painstakingly built is now extremely beat up. It needs a ton of work, and heck, it's not even really a great time for me to be dumping money into my rig to fix it because I don't really have tons of extra money just sitting around waiting for a project like this. But I accepted that the situation was outside of my control. I called a buddy, and we got it off the road and in a safe spot until I could fix it. And then I created a meme video about it, which currently has about 40,000 views. And the old me would probably hate the new me. But what's my point in this? Well, this isn't really about vehicles, even though I've been talking a lot about vehicles. This is about mindset. It's about me growing to a point where the possessions I have don't define me. They don't make me more valuable, better, etc. How often do we allow frivolous things to dictate who we are and how we behave? This washing machine that just failed you at the same time that your car failed inspection, which was right after the central air in your home decided it hated you. Our lives revolve around these stresses that we obsess over. We create fake pressure on ourselves and it affects us. It increases the tension inside of our bodies. It has a physical impact on our beings. We pre-plan our fear and anxiety surrounding things that we value, and in turn, what we value destroys us. It's hard for me to explain, but even when things feel like they're crumbling, I find peace in just reminding myself that they're just things. It's just stuff. It isn't worth the stress that I used to carry. Maybe you aren't like me, and I applaud you. I sometimes envy the people who can navigate their lives seemingly without a care in the world, ready to just react to the situations that life presents. But I also recognize we all have our pressures, our stresses. We all hit points where the things that we have dictate who we are and how we behave. So you want to affect culture, but you aren't sure where to start. One great thing you can do is pause this episode right now and share it with a friend. We rely solely on you doing just that. In order for this podcast to grow, it requires you all to help us spread the word about it. Your work in spreading this by word of mouth is a great investment into this culture. But if you want to do more and you want to support us at the same time, grab some apparel on our site. We have curated a collection of apparel that is tasteful yet spreads a message of cultural revival. I also have another piece of amazing news for you. Use code Exodus15 at checkout on exoduscompanies.com and you'll save 15%. That's a small thank you for the support and the spreading of this podcast. Let's get back into the show. So here are my final thoughts and words of encouragement to you all. When you are stressed out about material things, weigh the value of the pressure that you're adding to yourself. What is the solution? What will it take to fix the situation? Is it money, time, learning a new skill? Is it truly worth the pressure you are putting on yourself? Consider eliminating the stress-adding items from your life. How often do we keep things in our life that we feel emotionally attached to, but they only bring us stress? Rid yourself of excess garbage that doesn't help you become better in life. Refocus on the things that matter most. It might seem simplistic, but I constantly remind myself in the hardest of times that my family needs me. They need me to be excellent. And the weak way that I'm handling the situation is embarrassing. Suck it up, buttercup. I don't ignore the fact that I'm stressed or that I'm facing hard times, but I get over it. And I move forward, grieve and stress for a minute, but then it's time to get to work. Accepting the stress of a situation for a quick minute is all that we really need. I'll take that time, maybe say those choice words that I might need to get off my chest, vocalize my frustration, reframe my thoughts, and begin to create an action plan. Get to work, create a plan, lay out the steps to fix whatever situation you're in. Sure, it might actually be a really tough spot, but you need a plan. Lay it out, understand the cost. If you can't afford it right now, figure out what it will take to get you to the point where you can. Get creative, learn some skills, and learn to understand that every situation can be solved. Maturing through the years has really made me value less the material things I have and value more the things that money can't buy. Time, love, friendship, and experiences. These are the things that I value more than any item that I've purchased. I love my hobbies. I love creating videos around them. I love teaching people about them, but I no longer allow material things and the issues they cause to affect my life. I have found that when I step back, refuse to obsess, and process through situations with a clear mind, that they're often far less complicated than they seem in that hectic and chaotic moment. A solution to whatever you're facing with whatever material possession you have can always be found with a clear mind and sometimes some help from others. I spent the rest of the day in college soaked, heavily focused on what I could do to get my Jeep home. I finally ended up on a Jeep forum where I learned that I could unplug the transmission control module and manually shift my Jeep to get it home. I quickly ran back out into the downpour after class, took apart some of the dashboard, and unplugged the TCM. I slapped it in the 1 to 2 gear selection range, and then third gear, and then fourth in overdrive, and it worked. I was able to get my Jeep home. Obstacle 1 was overcome, but now I still needed to figure out why my Jeep would not shift on its own. I did some more digging and remembered that when I had swapped the engine recently, I used the throttle body and the sensors off the donor engine on my Jeep. I never tested them. I never checked them to see if everything was reading properly. I jumped to the engine that I pulled out of my Jeep originally, pulled the old throttle body, and slapped it onto the donor engine, and like magic, my Jeep would shift again. Oh, and one important fact that I forgot to mention, I was the one that swapped the engine because the old engine was tired, and in other words, I created the crap storm and all the drama that I experienced, which is typical in my life. How ironic. A simple sensor and a dirty throttle body made my Jeep refuse to shift. About 15 minutes of my time actually working on it, and I had a Jeep that shifted fine once again. Life and the lessons we are presented with are funny, and I often remind myself of this story when I'm stressed. It reminds me that with a clear mind, a good foundation, and a plan, I can overcome whatever obstacles present themselves. Thank you for listening to the Exodus Companies podcast. This is a movement from a broken culture to build a new, rejuvenated community. If you want to support our growing team, the first thing that you can do is pay it forward. It costs you nothing, and it ensures that our podcast is reaching those who need to hear the message the most. Share each episode, post on your socials, and always be sure to tag us. Another way that you can help support the podcast and help it to grow is to suggest topics on our YouTube channel comment section. If you didn't know, we post videos weekly on our YouTube along with the audio episodes that you're listening to now. Swing over there, hit subscribe, and make sure to leave us a comment. Lastly, shop any of our brands and consider purchasing some of our products. We don't beg you to do this, but it is necessary to sell our products to support our mission here at the Exodus Companies. We can't do this for free, so it does require our followers to support us through our products. If you feel called to do so, the amazing part is you are supporting U.S. manufacturing and U.S. employees. Your investment into us supports families here in the United States and helps us to continue to do what we are doing here at the Exodus Companies. Thank you for your continued support. There's much work to be done in the culture. We will see you all in the next episode.